Convene a special meeting of the Oregon City Commission for Tuesday, January 10th, 2017 at 6 p.m. Call roll, please.
Commissioner Ide?
Here.
Commissioner Shaw?
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Here.
Commissioner Mengelberg?
Here.
Mayor Holliday?
Here. So under general business, 17-044, resolution 17-02, extending declared emergency and exempting the Oregon City Retirement Center from planning code requirements on a temporary basis. Mr. Conkle.
Thank you, Mayor. Evening, Commissioners. So first off, thank you for the previous resolution number 17-01. I've included in the staff report emails from Art Johnson, the owner of the Oregon City Retirement Center, as well as Representative Fahid Brown from Clackamas County Housing Services. And during that last event that we had when we declared the initial emergency last week, they were able to provide shelter for approximately 19 folks over the 3-day event that we experienced, which was very helpful. And I believe in that correspondence you also saw an email that was provided to Mr. Brown from one of the folks who stayed in the shelter that night. So we did have additional conversation with both the representatives, and they did request if we would be willing to extend the emergency in light of the upcoming weather predicted for tonight and then the extreme cold weather through the remainder of this week. So the proposed resolution 1702 extends the emergency declaration for the Oregon City Retirement Center with the same conditions that were in place previously, maximum of 16 residents in the basement of the facility, 24-hour fire watch, and consultation and notification with Clackamas County Fire District 1. And then we are proposing that the resolution would expire at 8 a.m. on Monday, January 16, 2017, which does seem to accommodate the cold weather that is currently predicted over the next couple days here in Oregon City. We do recommend keeping an end date on this, and addressing this while it is a little bit more labor intensive on a case by case basis moving forward until other arrangements addressing code criteria for the facility can be met should they choose to do that. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
So in surveying the most recent action, there was a very limited number of users of the facility, as stated only, and they were charged with giving daily updates as to the number of attendees. Is that it? Is that all they had?
That's what we've been provided, yes.
Okay, and there was no law enforcement issues. It was all handled within the operating group. And once again, it has an end date on it. I've got no issues with it.
So just a question that somebody else asked me. So Father's Heart gets paid by the county for bodies in the warming shelter, right?
That's my understanding.
And so is Art getting paid for the people that come to his place?
I would have to follow up, and I'm not sure of the financial arrangement between the owner and Clackamas County for providing those services.
Right.
I can follow up with that.
Okay. Further discussion? Commissioner Mengelberg?
Just some questions. How long would it take for him to resolve the building code issues should he choose to, and what would be the process for that? Just assuming that we're going to be having more bad weather and we're going to be needing this again, and they wanted to continue, what does that look like in terms of time?
I think I'll turn it over to Ms. Turway, who's had some interaction with the owner.
Thank you. So if you would like to use this facility on a permanent basis as a shelter, warming shelter or not, you would have to go through a conditional use process. Staff could not identify that there was a conditional use already for the site. It's zoned for single-family homes, even though it has other uses there and around it. And so there would have to be a planning review process whereby there would be review by the Planning Commission at a series of public hearings.
And I'm not sure if we have a complete list of all the building requirements at this point for compliance with ADA access and whatnot.
We did tour the site with the fire department and the building department. there was a couple of concerns depending on which floors you were to use. If you were to stay that downstairs area, or if you were to go upstairs, there's a lot of room up there as well. So we did tour the site to look at long-term what would need to happen upstairs. And there was some access issues and then some changing of some sprinkler heads. So on the building side of things, not that much. More, the longer process would be the planning division process.
And that would be about a couple months, maybe, to go through?
Yeah, 4 to 6 maybe, depending on how long it takes you to put together an application.
All right, thank you.
I think one of the big issues we'll have there is that the current parking is in the 10th.
Right of way.
It was in the right of way, so parking a facility that large is, I think, something we'll have to have discussions about moving forward.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
So at our previous meeting, all the conversations were focused on temporary respite, to provide to get us through this. And at that time, a number of people expressed some concerns about the condition of the overall building. I'm unclear as to who controls that facility, if it's DHSH or whoever it may be. I think it's a mistake to move forward and start considering it as what are we going to do to make it a permanent structure. I also feel that as much as I'm my brother's keeper and want to provide for them in this cold weather, I also have a responsibility to the citizens of this city. So if we start moving in that direction, I think that will require a lot of consideration. I certainly have no problems with shielding people from the cold on a short-term basis under the conditions that we've set.
Chief Band?
So, something that I wasn't at the last meeting about this, but just something to make you aware of. There is a group that has been kind of forming that I think you're going to know more about in the future if you've not heard about, and I think it is the Oregon City Homeless Solutions Coalition. One of the things that is an action item that came up then was the topic of warming shelters, and I know that the faith-based community, they're trying to identify what churches would be willing and then well suited to doing this in the future when we need warming shelters in the community. So it might be something that the faith-based community takes care of. They're in the process of doing it, and so in the future this might not be something that where we're in a position to do, where we have to do something like this. It might be being taken care of as we speak.
So are there any codes or restrictions on a church doing this?
They too could do a conditional use.
So
Depending on
currently,
where
we don't have any churches that have a conditional use to be a warming shelter or an emergency shelter?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you have something to say, Mr. Weisman?
Mary, I was just mentioning to the manager that there is something known as RLUIPA, the Religious Land Use Institutionalized Persons Act, which limits the ability of the city to restrict certain aspects of religious institutions. And that's something we'd have to be aware of if a church or other faith-based institution were to say that this is part of their mission. We'd have to look at that, and we've. I know that some other cities have been involved in some litigation about just what sort of restrictions can a city place on things that are central to a religious institution's mission.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I guess on the flip side, in the summertime, you might need cooling shelters. But that's more during the daytime, right? So our library and our senior center seem to fill that role adequately, at least to date.
They would be open during those times. I guess I haven't run into that one where we've had a request for that.
Yeah, it's not very often we get to a place where somebody needs to be cooling in Oregon City.
No, there were a couple times this summer, I remember, that we did.
Where they've opened, but we've never had a request that I'm aware of. So I would assume that those facilities that are open, whether it's the pool, library, Pioneer Center, I know we have, I guess in hindsight, we have discussed that, especially as it relates to elderly community, and reminding them that the Pioneer Center is available for cooling purposes.
And that's not an overnight situation. It's more of a...
Not that we've run into.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, any further discussion? I hear a motion.
Move to approve resolution number 17-02.
Second?
Moved by Commissioner Shaw, seconded by Commissioner Ide. Further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Mengelberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Ide,
Aye.
Commissioner Shaw,
Aye.
Mayor Holliday.
Aye. Further communications, Mr. Manager?
Nothing additional tonight.
Anything from Commission?
Nope.
Then we're adjourned.